All right, Ian, we have a Patreon for the podcast, don't we?
We do. Patreon.com/CU podcast. You pick a tier. There's money involved. Things are given in exchange. You get access to the full video podcast. That's right. You get that. You get we do a hangout once a month. Do writing. Got some writing coming up about Kool-Aid. Yeah, it's good times.
No, you did a writing about
I did it. Did you post it?
You said coming up. I posted it, yes.
Well, I didn't know if you'd posted it. As of last night, you still said you had to post it. So then there's a writing about Kool-Aid up right now. Go read it.
You can also, if you want to get the video podcast, you can click the join button on YouTube next to subscribe. There's also a tier for that as well. Just saying, your option. So we have a Patreon poll topic we vote on. You guys vote on every week. Third and second place are almost tied. This is a fight. Second and third place are not going away anytime soon. In third place, 28%. What video game should be turned into a Broadway musical? It's now a quest for some of these people to get this topic chosen. In second place, tips for a new game store employee at 29%. That's very strong for second and third place. And in first place, Ian, this is I guess an easier one to talk about, or we can bring up what are your top 5 movies of all time?
So I generally hate favorite questions.
I absolutely do.
Can't stand them. Favorite video games? Couldn't possibly tell you. 5 favorite albums? I have no idea. 5 favorite bands? Fucking clueless. I am not a huge movie guy, but I do still like a ton of movies. So movies is not as hard for me as music or games or even foods. But it's still tough. However, over the years, I've kind of created a top 5 movies in my head for the sake of discussion. Is it actually my top 5 favorite movies? If I really sat down to think about it, things might get shuffled around a little bit, but all of these would be in the top 10 at least. So I do. My top 5 favorite movies are as follows, no particular order: Alien, Aliens, Halloween, Bloodsport, and Mean Girls.
All right, let's start from each one. Let's go through.
Alien is I love the look of it. I love the movie. I love the set work. It's a fantastic suspense film.
Geiger art.
I adore it. Every time I watch it, there are still
good cast.
Great cast.
Tom Skerritt's in there.
Yep, Tom Skerritt. Dean Stanton.
The guy passed away last year. Recipe. William Hurt,
Yaphet Kotto, Sigourney Weaver.
That's like a fantastic cast.
It's an insanely
when they're all young.
Cast. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, every time I watch that movie, there are still parts that get me to tense up. You know,
to this day with the cat hissing and then like.
Yeah, Jonesy. Can't forget Jonesy.
Oh, Jonesy, fantastic actor.
Fantastic acting, Jonesy.
Yeah.
Aliens. Also, the first thing people always want to discuss when I bring up this Aliens as being on there as well. They're like 2 Alien movies, really. They're fucking entirely different
genres.
They're different films in different genres. I love the look and the lore of Aliens, the xenomorphs.
They built out the lore.
There is absolutely room in my top 5 for 2 movies about the same thing that are handled in totally different ways.
Cameron built out the lore to be something like a much larger world versus just the first movie. Like,
yeah, you get for the first movie is a suspense film. The second film is an horror film. Yeah. I mean, there's suspense, but it's a fucking action movie.
Action horror sort of thing, which is kind of rare.
It is. It's very rare. Yeah. You don't see it very often. It's actually kind of why. And this is not in my top 5, but Jason X. Like some people hate it, but I think most people.
I remember enjoying it.
I think most people like it a little ironically, but I mean I do. It's a weird thing to see the horror action sci-fi thing all mix around. So I grab onto movies like that. I really like stupid movies, even if it's something stupid like Jason X. I like it. It's a genre you don't see often. Halloween, again, a suspense film. I think it's nearly a perfect movie. I love Halloween. I love the shots in Halloween.
Good pacing.
The pacing is incredible, and the lack. I usually like my movies to have some backstory, but the thing that works so well in Halloween is you don't really know. There's no motivation really. There's no backstory to Michael. At that point, it's just fear.
Yeah,
It's just something that is coming at
just a monster, Halloween monster.
It's literally fear. I love it, and it's also one of those movies that I think at this point, if you're not into horror movies, I think the first Halloween still to this day surprises people because they go in expecting a slasher, and I don't think anyone is who's not into horror movies realize there's very little blood in the original Halloween. It's not a shock movie. There's not a lot of, there's no real cuts of, you don't really see a knife go into someone. It's not like Friday the 13th, especially as that series went on. Same with the Halloween movies. You got more of the gore. You got more of the slasher. You want to see the gores. You got more of the splat. That's really not there in Halloween. Halloween really just kind of preys on suspense and build up.
You want to go back and forth, or you want to just do all 5?
If we can go back and forth, that's fine.
Because you already did what, 2 or you already did 3?
I did 3.
All right, I'll start with my first one, Ian. I like to do favorites by genre. Well, Aliens was going to be in my top 5. And special edition, some people don't like the special edition because it maybe drags in the beginning with the people in the colony, but it fills in the gaps nicely later on. That's why I like the special edition better.
My take on the Alien movies is Alien special edition, never. Alien special edition, always.
I could say some of the colony stuff you can cut out, but it gives you more backstory to Newt. At the beginning, which I think is important at the beginning. It gives you more of Ripley learning about the dying daughter, which builds into Newt. So there's more character development there that works.
It's not necessary, but if you've got the extra 20 minutes to spend, it adds. It takes an already good movie and really fleshes it out.
Yeah, you see. I mean, when you find out you've been in fucking cryo sleep for fucking 80 years and your daughter's dead.
Yeah,
come on. You got to keep that in.
Yeah, especially because that's going to. I mean, that directly informs why she gives such a shit about Newt later on in the movie.
And then obviously you get the cool things like the sentry guns. That's just an awesome.
I love the sentry guns,
and it builds into their strategy. You get to see the cool thing about Aliens is that you can follow their strategy of trying to stay alive. It makes sense.
Yeah,
they map it out for you. They point out we're going to seal off this door and this door. We're going to do this. We're going to have Bishop go. You can. God, it makes sense.
That cast is so good.
Oh, it's fantastic. The movie makes sense as okay, they're trying to stay alive. They're all competent. And I'll get one of my other picks about these are all competent people that have to deal with something horrible. These aren't stupid kids in a Friday the 13th movie or Nightmare on Elm Street. So okay, Aliens is on my list.
That's what makes it scary too. Is these are people who they make mistakes, but they more or less are trained to handle these situations, and they cannot.
They go on bug hunts. They literally say that. We kill these sort of things usually. Okay, so that's on my list first, but that's not even count. Glory. I'll go more serious versus genre. Glory is one of the best war films I've ever seen, and according to a lot of historians, it's fairly realistic in how it depicts brutal Civil War violence. When you watch garbage like Gettysburg that my dad forced me to watch, that is a romanticized version of the Civil War, when Civil War combat was brutal and just harrowing. And something like Glory, when heads are exploding and people are getting shot in the face and stab bayonets. That's not why I like it, though. It's a story of the 54th Regiment of Massachusetts, the first all-black regiment in the Civil War. Colonel Shaw, played by Matthew Broderick. You have an outstanding cast. Outstanding cast, Ian, in this movie. Denzel Washington got Best Supporting Actor for his role. Morgan Freeman's in it, a younger Morgan Freeman. Cary Elwes is in it. A young Andre Braugher, who could be the best, most underrated actor ever. And it's a nice story that was good to learn about, especially when I was young. They just watched us that in third grade, fourth grade. And it's very violent, obviously. It's R-rated. But I'm glad they did, because it's an excellent story. And spoilers, it's not the happiest of endings. either. So, but it's a true story. So Glory is definitely up there, and it's very the director, I always forget his name, but a very underrated director. Edward Zwick directed that, and it's not a name you usually hear about for like a good director, but it was very, very well competently made, sort of in like almost like a Spielberg sort of style. He did
I'm looking him up because the name is familiar.
The Last Samurai. He did, which is a good movie. He did Blood Diamond. So this is a very competent director that you don't hear a lot about because he doesn't have that huge resume like Spielberg, but he's a very good director. So, and it's very hard to direct a war film well. So there you go. You ever see Glory?
No.
You never saw Glory? Holy shit. Well worth watching because there's obviously underpinnings, obviously, of racism and slavery, but it's also about like what it means to become a man and try to get past all that and become a soldier. And they're obviously all ex-slaves and they all have different perspectives as what's going on. It's fucking brilliant. Go watch Glory, everyone. I don't think it was nominated for best picture, and it should have been. I believe it was nominated for Golden Globe for best director. Okay, so that's my first one. I'll go to my second one since you already did that. And coming off of Aliens, a movie with a monster threat and competent soldiers, Predator.
Great film.
Go watch. I did the rental reviews with James about Predator. The reason Predator works is that it's the best that Arnold has ever acted in a movie because he acts like a normal person for the most part. He doesn't act like this superhuman, except for one glib line when he throws a knife through a guy's chest. For the most part, it's a realistic, soldier. And it's a group of soldiers that are all competent, all specialties. Their camaraderie comes through the screen. They train together as actors for weeks beforehand, and it was hell on earth, that production. It was hell on earth when you read behind the scenes of that production. So they all bonded, and that comes across. I always point out, like when people talk about who aren't in the military, don't know like the special bonds that these men form in combat together. Like that movie shows it without even showing it, about how they all rib each other, but you can tell they like each other, love each other, and will give their lives for each other. But that's just the first half of the movie, first 30 minutes. Then you get to the Predator, and the first time I watched it with my dad on VHS, and I didn't know what I was watching because it was like it's a monster, but you don't see it,
right?
And it's just annihilating all these big 6'3" huge muscle men who don't know what the hell's going on. They're all questioning each other. They're all like, we don't know if these are a bunch of just guys running around the woods. Like, we have no fucking clue what's going on. They're killing us one by one. And that's the part that's horrifying. They don't know what's happening.
Right.
But then they try to come back, and then it all falls apart anyway. And obviously, the monster itself is a brilliant design by Stan Winston, and that was obviously a change from our buddy Van Damme, who was an ant person that was famously fired. And that's a funny story. There's a whole verbal history of Predator online you can watch that's written down, and it's fucking brilliant, of all the crap that went on in the scenes, and people don't know what they're doing. The original crew didn't know what they were doing. The ant suit got thrown out for the new, like, I fucking love Predator. Sorry, I can go on forever.
No, it's great.
And great action. All right, you're next.
So next I'll say Mean Girls. Mean Girls is one of my favorite films. It is a product of its time, but I am a big fan of. It's a product of its time in terms of its visual looks, but I find the story is fairly timeless. It's a funny movie, written by Tina Fey.
Before Saturday Night Live, or at the time she was?
I think right before. I think right before, or right around the time. It's very smart, very funny. Has great performances by some people that you wouldn't necessarily expect them from. Lindsay Lohan is actually quite good in it.
Before she went off the deep end.
Before she went off the deep end. And I've never been like, I'm generally not like a huge fan of Tim Meadows. Tim Meadows is funny in that as the principal.
Okay. He's actually funny.
And I just think that there's a lot of, there's just a lot of good roles in there. And every time I go back to it, I'm like, am I going to like it as much as I did? And the answer is yes, I always do. So it stays in my top 5 for sake of discussion, because if I didn't leave it in my top 5, it would just be action movies.
That's true. No dramas in your top 5 yet?
No dramas. And,
right.
and the last one is, I mean, I'm not going to say it. It's dramatic.
I gotta do 2 more for you to catch up. I only did 2 so far.
No, you did 3 because you said Aliens.
No, it doesn't count.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's like get them going. Empire Strikes Back. Probably my favorite genre film of all time.
It's a great movie.
It stands alone. It rises above the predecessor. It elevated Star Wars to be an actual franchise, because before it wasn't. It was just a really cool movie, because they didn't have film franchises didn't really exist on that level.
Right.
You can count James Bond a little bit. It was like that wasn't quite the same as this.
James Bond doesn't really do a continuous story.
Yes, too. That's the thing. It wasn't a serial like this. You learn that your heroes from the original have deep flaws, all three of them, that they have to overcome. Because in the first one, they really didn't. Especially when Han Solo's like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to fight for this. And then he comes back and saves the day. Han Solo is my favorite Star Wars character by a country mile. And he shines, obviously, at Empire Strikes Back. It's really his show. Harrison Ford is fantastic. I love Harrison Ford, but he's great in this. The effects are so much better than the first one with the models. Like the asteroid chase, they could not do that in the original. A few years later, they figured that shit. They figured that shit out.
Right.
The Hoth battle is great. The pacing of the movie is great. Yoda is fucking a fantastic character, and the puppetry, you think it's real. Like, you think it's real.
No, he's
puppeted by Frank Oz. You think it's real.
Done absolutely.
It's amazing.
Amazingly.
It's absolutely amazing. The speech, the whole speech about the Force with Yoda right before Luke tries to raise and fail the X-wing. That's my favorite part of the entire movie. It's beautiful.
Fantastic.
With the score, with the direction, with Frank Oz. Like, when you see like Yoda grimace, like, it's like a disappointment. You're like, this is amazing. I can't imagine watching that in the theater. I can't imagine. I wish I could have watched that in the theater, because I don't remember any film historians. Was there a puppet character like that in a movie that people bought as like being a real character to that point, plus like a sage character, and that is then you get to Cloud City. You have the overly confident Luke get his ass handed to him by Darth Vader, who's toying with him just to feel him out. Okay, is this guy worth it? And then that lightsaber fight, it's split into 3 parts, but it's absolutely brilliant. It's the best lightsaber fight out of all the fucking 9 movies. I don't care. Lightsaber fights are not about flipping around and doing fucking jumps. It's about the emotion behind and what each character is bringing to the fight. That's what makes the fight. And it's still good. Yeah, and it has a bad ending, which before that wasn't a thing for like a big crowd movie. It has a bad ending.
It ends on a down note. It doesn't have a bad ending.
Well, okay. One of your heroes is fucking frozen, taken away by a bounty hunter. I lost my damn hand, and plus the biggest villain is my dad. That's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, Ian. It's pretty bad. Brilliant score, brilliant direction. Irving Kershner, fucking great. All right, what
hit me with 4.
Okay. Now I'm thrown off by that one, because now I got to struggle and think of one. Because I know what yours is going to be. I don't want to take yours. I know one of yours is going to do. Well, you said dramatic. That's funny. How about a comedy? A pure comedy? I rewatched Ghostbusters the other day. While I like Ghostbusters, that's not my favorite one. It's great as a comedy, obviously. I'm going to say Caddyshack for a comedy. Caddyshack, there's some rough edges that when you look 40 years later on that movie, but it's such a hodgepodge of brilliant performances that the plot doesn't matter. Like that, the plot doesn't matter in Caddyshack.
Sure.
You have brilliant performances by really 4 actors at their prime. Really 5. Let's see, what was the 5th one? Caddyshack. I'm gonna put in Caddyshack. There might be a 5th one I'm missing. Caddyshack cast. But you have Rodney Dangerfield, the peak of his powers, who's probably ad-libbing almost everything he's saying in that movie, or the majority, and he's peeing your pants funny. Bill Murray is definitely ad-libbing everything, because that's been confirmed. He basically ad-libbed. That's the funniest Bill Murray's ever been. Chevy Chase is actually funny in that movie. Like, I know people, Chevy Chase went like to the peak and then down, but Chevy Chase was actually funny in that movie, and you see why, as his his straight sort of line, dry wit. And then Ted Knight is hysterical in that movie.
Yeah,
he's hysterical.
Yeah,
as the snooty yuppie judge. Like, and it's the mix of all these characters that make it great. And I know they had to re-edit that movie substantially, it sounds like, to take the focus off of the actual Caddyshack, because who the fuck cares about these kids and that Caddy character, and put it on the 4 funny guys basically. And it's hysterical, that movie. I watched it with Andre one time. Andre one time hung out here a year or 2 ago. Said, I've never seen Caddyshack before. I was like, you never saw Caddyshack? We watched it. It was great to show it to us for the first time.
I haven't seen it in years, but I mean, I've definitely seen Caddyshack.
It's one of my favorite comedies, and it's totally rewatchable too. there. So that's probably for a comedy. And it may not even be my favorite comedy, but it's always one that stands out to me because people always put, okay, what about Caddyshack or Animal House? Animal House is probably it's probably on paper a better movie. It's not a better comedy to me, if that makes sense for Animal House. All right, what about you? Your number one?
My number one, like I said, no particular order, but Bloodsport. Bloodsport would definitely stay on there. And I'm not trying to say that it's a fucking classic of Western literature. It's not, but it's...
Western entertainment?
Yeah, but...
but it was filmed in the East.
But it is a very fun movie that never takes too long on anything. Has great fight scenes and wraps up
great for the time. Yes.
Yeah, great for the time and wraps up where it needs to.
90 minutes flat, right?
Yeah.
88 minutes, get in, get out.
Get in, get out. It has Forrest Whitaker. It has Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Donald
Gibb. They used actual fighters.
Bolo Young.
Yep, Bolo Young.
Mr. Pex.
Who sent me on... I mean, I spent years obsessed with watching like all of the Bolo Young movies I could find. Yes.
He started his own stuff, that's right.
But yeah, it's just... If you ever wanted I can think of no movie that kind of embodies what everyone thought was fucking cool in the late 80s, which was a lot of dudes bare knuckle fighting, ninjas, karate, action, that sort of stuff. The mystery.
Well, there was a ton of martial arts movies and action movies, but most of them were hot garbage.
Most of them were hot garbage, and most of them didn't do what Bloodsport did, which is why it's...
By the way, the budget was around only $2 million for that movie.
It focuses on the tournament. It doesn't deal with a whole lot of extraneous bullshit. Yes, there's the story about them getting Frank back to the U.S., and yes, there's the little bit of the love triangle. But
love triangle?
Or not love triangle, but the love interest.
Well, she's a reporter.
She's a reporter. But the movie...
That was a lovely layer.
The movie accelerates to where it needs to go very well.
Yeah, it starts with the backstory, how he got trained, 15 minutes. I love that montage. Fucking brilliant montage. Yep. And then it goes, okay... You're going to meet your friend playing Karate Champ. You're going to meet your first. You're going to meet your first opponent trying to basically try to rape the reporter. Yeah. Like it sets everything up.
They get right to the tournament, and then they do the smart thing, and they tell the rest of the story through the action.
Yes. Everything's worked out through the action. All of the conflicts and friendships comes out through the tournament.
Exactly.
Brilliant, Ian. That's a good point when it comes to that.
I mean, as much as it's something that can easily be laughed off, and it is just a kind of an overly macho Van Damme vehicle, I do think it does a number of things very, very well.
It's what made Van Damme a star. Yeah. This is his first starring role.
It does a lot of things right.
And Van Damme is, I mean, I know he had his problems in the 90s, like being coked up and, alcohol and problem with women. He's a super charismatic guy.
Yes.
The reason Van Damme worked so well for that first 6, 7, 8 years up to probably The Quest, which is basically a remake of Bloodsport, but with not as good as a plot, but better action. He's like, he looks innocent, but he can come off as tough. And he does portray getting his ass kicked well.
He does, yeah. He plays the...
He's fresh-faced.
Yeah, he plays the fresh entry in the Kumite very, very well. It's incredibly believable.
And then you have a great supporting cast. Donald Gibb as Ray Jackson, Bolo Young. Norman Burton was a big-time older actor as Helmer, and Forrest Whitaker shows up right like a year after Good Morning Vietnam, just about, as Rollins. Then you have Roy Chow, who died, I believe, a year or two ago. Big-time Chinese actor as Senzo Tanaka. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fucking gravitas of this guy. You look at how many movies this guy's done.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 150 movies. I just remember seeing him in Tora Tora Tora. That's what I remember seeing
that's what I always remember him as.
I'm sorry, he's Japanese, not Chinese. My bad. And then he was obviously in Temple of Doom as Lao Che, the villain in the beginning. Well, he played, all these actors, they play different, ethnicities there. But remember the beginning of Temple of Doom? Mm-hmm. Basically the James Bond opening. Fucking brilliant actor. Brilliant actor. Rest in peace. There, Roy. Anyway, I used to watch this during the summer on a VHS tape, on a dub.
That you pulled off of TBS.
Yes, because it's always on TBS.
Yes, that's when we all grew up watching it.
And they didn't always cut the violence out on TBS, if I remember. Sometimes they showed it. Sometimes they cut it out. Sometimes they showed it.
Yeah,
that's what I remember.
I know I've seen it I know I've seen it on TV with the bone cut out, but the tape that I had growing up off of TBS showed the compound fracture.
Yes. So this is what I used to do in my living room. I used to mimic, to try to learn martial arts when I was like 14, 13. I would try to mimic what Van Damme did. I swear to God. I would try, and I got better throughout that summer. I that's what I did. So that's your. I almost feel like I can't pick another one. I almost feel like I should just stop with Bloodsport and agree with you.
It's fine. I mean, I'd be happy.
How important is Bloodsport? Without Bloodsport, you probably wouldn't have Mortal Kombat as a game.
Yes.
You know, like obviously it was based on Enter Dragon 2, but I mean, Johnny Cage was going to be Van Damme. They wanted Van Damme to do that. Yeah. Like no, Bloodsport is I think Bloodsport's underrated. Just because it for that cheap of a movie. It perfected like everything other movies were trying to do.
I love tournament movies, and I love Enter the Dragon for that reason, but Bloodsport is very good.
And plus, when you read you didn't read the script yet. I sent you the script. They saved it. Van Damme saved it in editing too. He helped edit it because there was a lot of extraneous bullshit they cut out, but ninjutsu garbage from the hack, fraud.
Yeah.
So like, go read the script. You'll see there's a lot more stuff in there that they cut out. They probably cut out a good 10 minutes of this.
It's good they did
from that. So all right, we're gonna end that. Oh, and then Bloodsport. Fuck it. And then Bloodsport. We both have T-shirts of it. We love Bloodsport. I'll think of one for next week. Thanks for that question there.